Putin does not want peace, and he's proven it.
But he's trying to run down the clock, but the clock may well run down him.
Ukraine can absolutely win this war if we give Ukraine the appropriate weapons. And so Russia will withdraw when Russia is bleeding, when the gas, basically it's a gas station masquerading as a country. When the gas station is on fire, they will withdraw.
Well, back to Ukraine. It sounded almost casual, but the signal was clear. President Trump appeared last night to suggest America might once again leave Europe to the Europeans. Didn't sound so good. But breaking news tonight, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has announced a fresh sanctions package on Russia. And the White House and the Pentagon have authorized the use of long-range missiles to strike deep into the heart of Russia once again. So maybe President Trump isn't done with this war just yet. Joining me to discuss all of that is Dan Rice, a former special advisor to Ukraine's armed forces. And Raheem Kassam is still in the studio. But Mr. Rice, good evening. It struck me that things were looking a little bleak earlier in the week with President Trump dangling that promise of Tomahawk missiles, the threat of Tomahawk missiles in the eyes of Putin. That went away. And then the Budapest summit was cancelled as it appeared there'd be no breakthrough from Russia's maximalist position not just they don't just want the Donbass and vast swathes of eastern territory for Ukraine, but they want all of those. All of those demands that they won't join NATO, they won't join the EU. We're well versed in what the Russians want. But tonight, Scott Bessent announcing a fresh sanctions package, and we're seeing storm shadows rattling Russian oil refineries deep into Russia once again. Something's changed, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, everybody realizes that Putin does not want peace. And I think President Trump has given every effort to secure peace without increasing and escalating the war. The reality is providing Ukraine with the same weapons that Russia is firing and has been firing into Ukraine for 3.5 years, almost 4 years, is not escalation. And that's where everybody has to stop swallowing the Russian disinformation. They put a lot of effort into this. Giving somebody a gun to go to a gunfight is parody. You don't give them a knife. And we've been giving Ukraine a knife. Under Biden, we gave Ukraine a knife every time. And it cost tens of thousands of Ukrainian lives because we weren't giving an equal weapon. Ukraine is getting hit by cruise missiles and ballistic missiles. You give Ukraine ballistic missiles and cruise missiles back. That's what the Tomahawk is. That's what we need to give them. Right now, Storm Shadows are great. And HIMARS are great, ATACMs, but we need Tomahawks, and that's the next one up, and I think it's going to happen because Putin does not want peace, and he's proven it.
Yeah, we were discussing at length last night the fact with Bill Browder. So Bill Browder, for Putin, peace is almost a sort of existential crisis. He needs this war to continue because if this war ends, so does he. In light of that, it does seem impossible to bring him to the table. Will Ukraine? You've seen the Ukraine armed forces up close. You've advised them. You've helped them over the years. Is it possible for Ukraine to still win this war? Can they drive Russia back to those February 2022 lines? Or are we at stalemate at best?
Ukraine can absolutely win this war if we give Ukraine the appropriate weapons. Now, let me clarify. That does not mean they're going to take the occupied territories by force. The number of landmines in this area is just enormous. And breaching these landmines has proven in 2023 and 2024 impossible. So it's not breaching the landmines. It's winning it politically and militarily together. And so Russia will withdraw when Russia is bleeding, when the gas, basically it's a gas station masquerading as a country. When the gas station is on fire, they will withdraw. And that's the goal, is to fire enough long-range weapons into Russia, destroy their economy, destroy their GDP, their long-term GDP. And that will hurt Putin. He will be forced between a poor and a difficult decision. But that's what we have to do to him.
Do you welcome then tonight the sanctions package from Scott Bessent? The details are shaky. They are literally breaking as we speak. But as you said, that gas station economy is hitting the Russian oil firms. This has been in the cooking for a long time. Ahead of Alaska and the Anchorage summit in August, these sanctions were dangled by the United States, only for Putin to get on a plane and sort of see them off. They had that phone call last week, 2-hour phone call that seems to have delayed at least the Tomahawks. But it seems that President Trump might have lost a little patience here. What are these sanctions, do you think, going to do to the Russian economy? Will it be enough?
Well, Harry, I mean, I don't think we've had a president in our history who has known the political power of the U.S. economy. And President Trump knows that better than anyone. And now it's all coming to bear. And he's got Secretary Bessent implementing sanctions. But more importantly, Ukraine has implemented sanctions. When I say sanctions, that means long-range fires to destroy the Russian GDP. If you hit them on both sides, supply and demand, you're hitting the supply side by long-range fires, destroying refineries. You're hitting them on the demand side by putting sanctions against anybody buying Russian oil. You're getting them on both places. This is where I think it's going to go, Harry. I think President Trump has the ability right now, and he has the political capital within the Gulf states. He destroyed their biggest enemy in the Sunni Shia rift. Iran was the enemy to Qatar and UAE and Saudi. I think he's going to go and do a victory lap, and he's going to say, I want $10 billion from each of you to go into the Ukraine Victory Fund to buy long-range fires. He told taxpayers he is not going to have taxpayers pay for the Ukraine war. He's going to get somebody else to pay it. He's got the Europeans right now paying for it. $28 billion. Now he's going to get the Gulf states to pay for it. He's going to do a victory lap, and he's going to end the war because he's going to give long-range fires to Ukraine and make sure that's the real security guarantee that should have been given in the 1994 Budapest Memorandum. That's what he's going to do. I believe that's going to happen.
That is fascinating. Do you think, I mean, it felt to me like on the sort of high on the success of the Hamas deal last week, he sort of almost rushed into trying to bounce Putin into a fresh meeting, a fresh summit, and actually, sort of bit off slightly more than he can chew. And the feedback, any feedback suggesting that Russians were ready to move was clearly wide of the mark. But do you think that that Witkoff-Jared Kushner Gulf relationship? Tell us a little bit more about that. I'm really interested about how you.
Well, I know it's being discussed at the highest levels, and it's a twofold approach. So it's get the Gulf states to fund the Victory Fund, and two, to produce more oil. And if the Gulf states produce more oil, it'll keep oil low. Putin knows he can't survive 3 years of low oil. And President Trump has 3 years left, over 3 years. So get the Gulf states to do two things. One, give money for the Ukraine Victory Fund, long-range fires to destroy Russia, make sure that even after we have a ceasefire, that Russia never has another incursion. Two, keep oil low, increase their production until Russia ends up withdrawing to the 91 borders. Back to your original question. We don't need to militarily win the war. Ukraine does not militarily win the occupied territories. We need Russia to withdraw to 91 borders, or we keep oil low and destroy the Russian economy until there is no Putin.
Dan Rice, fascinating stuff. I hope you're right. Come back and see us soon as that plays out. Please, thank you for joining us tonight. Raheem Kassam, fascinating from Dan Rice there. That the Witkoff, Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner Gulf model could be Peace 2.0 in Ukraine, bringing the Gulf in to not just rebuild Gaza, rebuild war-torn Ukraine as well, put the squeeze there on the Russian economy, that oil economy, and bring Putin to the table the hard way. I mean, that's kind of 4D chess, but do you think that's going to work?
I don't want to make a prediction of whether or not I think that, like you say, 4D peace plan could work, but these are people with a pretty decent track record now. Mm-hmm. They are people who are taken very seriously around the world. They are people who have forced others to the table who people never thought would come to the table. I mean, you can go back to the Abraham Accords, right? Yep. It's not just the most recent stuff that we're talking about. And look, President Trump went into this negotiation or attempted negotiation with both sides of the Ukraine-Russia war with a very, very open mind. On both sides of it, remember how he treated Zelensky at the very beginning? Yeah. They kind of bullied him in the Oval Office and said, listen, you need to accept that...
You don't hold no cards, yeah.
You don't hold no cards. And this is now they're telling Putin the same thing. It's like, hey, listen, this guy is now ready to make peace. You have to get on the same agenda. Or what happened today with the sanctions, Rosneft and Lukoil, is going to be paltry in comparison to what comes next.
Do you think Donald Trump will do that? Because every time it almost seems like he's getting there, he pulls back. Putin phones him up and praises him and lavishes praise on him for his peace deal in the Middle East, or he jumps on a plane and God knows what he told him behind the scenes. But, you know, Trump went into that Anchorage meeting saying, you know, ceasefire now, then talks. Then he said no ceasefire, then talks, and, you know, and it all just rolls back. And every time he's almost ready to, you know, put the throttle on, put the boot on the neck, he seems to step back.
Yeah, well, Putin is a master of buying time. But unfortunately, time might be one of the things that Putin does not have anymore.
Yeah.
Increasing frustration amongst his own base in Russia. I mean, I'm talking about the people directly around him. I'm talking about the oligarchs. I'm talking about the generals. There is increasing frustration, by the way, you know, in the international community. That's why the Gulf states are looking at this and going, yeah, this guy, if he's going to be intransigent about it, then it's up to the world to come in here and start doing something.
It really is the word, isn't it? It is intransigent.
And then
he's thumbing his nose.
But the last thing about it is that he's an old man. And he's not a very well old man.
Yeah, he didn't look great in Alaska, did he?
And so he's trying to run down the clock, but the clock may well run down him.
I mean, but also it's a kind of better the devil you know, who steps into a chaotic, collapsing Russian mafia state. You know, the people that could be someone even worse than Putin waiting in the wings.
Why are you looking at me when you said that?
You're a betting man. What are the odds, do you think, of, you know, the winter is coming, to coin a phrase. The lines will freeze until the, you know, fresh spring offensives, when both sides will have time to reman, to rearm. What do you say the odds are of, by, say, I don't know, time for the next year's Nobel Peace Prize, Donald Trump having brought peace, a lasting peace, or a lasting ceasefire at least, to Ukraine?
I am a betting man. I would not make that bet.
Really? You think this is going to grind on for a fourth year?
And by the way, it's not an insult to President Trump or his team. I'm not trying to call them incapable of doing this. I just think that, as I say, Putin is determined to try and run the clock out. What he's trying to run the clock out on mostly is the Trump presidency.
Yeah.
You know, he thinks that he can deal with others easier or manipulate others easier.
And J.D. Vance has made clear that he is not as an interventionist as Donald Trump has been known to be. And he was well reported that he was uncomfortable with that strike on Iran, which was ultimately successful. The Republican base ain't up for a forever war with America entangled in it. So we're pivoting back to the top.
Let's say a Democrat wins the next presidential election.
Yeah.
Who's that going to be? Who's going to talk tough to Vladimir Putin? Pete Buttigieg?
All right.